Hey guys, today we'll be talking about countable and uncountable nouns. Let's go! So in English, nouns can be divided into two categories, countable and uncountable nouns. As you could easily understand, countable nouns are nouns that can be counted, like apple. You can say an apple, 2 apples, 3 apples, and so on. Whereas uncountable nouns are nouns that cannot be counted. So for instance, air, you can say 1 air, 2 airs. It simply doesn't make sense. But let's see how these nouns work. First, we're going to see how countable nouns work. So they use a or an in their singular form, depending on whether the nouns start with a vowel or not. So to say that there's only one animal, for example, we would say an animal. And these nouns, since we've said they're countable, obviously have a plural. So for instance, we would have a car, 2 cars. And in plural, these nouns use some, generally in affirmative sentences, and any in negative sentences or in questions. Like you could say, I have some friends, or does anyone have any questions? Then here we have uncountable nouns. So since we've said that we cannot count them, these nouns won't have a plural, so they only have a singular form. But since we can't count them, then they won't obviously use a or an. We cannot say a music, obviously. So what follows is that the verb will be in singular form as well, like in music helps me relax. And if we want to say that there's more of it, we can use some or any, just like for countable nouns. So some generally for affirmative sentences and any for negative sentences or questions. So we could say, I want some food, or do you have any advice for me? Here we have a list of common uncountable nouns. So for instance, we have knowledge. Obviously, we wouldn't say knowledges. Or we have advice, food, work, money, and so on. However, there are some nouns that can be both countable and uncountable, but with a difference in meaning. So for instance, tea. We could say, they say it's healthy to drink tea, so using it here as an uncountable noun. But we could also say, would you like a tea, as in referring to a cup of tea. Or work as well, generally uncountable. So we would say, living in a large house is a lot of work. But we could also say, that picture is a work of art. Here we have some other words, quantifiers, that are often used with countable and uncountable nouns to specify the quantity of the object. So we need to be careful because depending on whether the noun is countable or uncountable, the quantifier to use will be different. So if we're talking about small quantities, we use a few with countable nouns, like a few friends, and a little for uncountable nouns, so a little money. Then if we're talking about large quantities, we use many for countable nouns, like many friends, and much for uncountable nouns, mostly in negative sentences and in questions. So for example, do you have much shampoo left? However, for large quantities, we could also use a lot of or lots of for both countable and uncountable nouns. So we could say I have a lot of or lots of friends, and we could also say I have a lot of or lots of shampoo left. Okay, that was it for today, guys. Thanks for watching.